Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my favorite Christmas memories and traditions, and that is our Christmas morning breakfast. When I was growing up, we would spend Christmas Eve with my mom's parents, my granny and pa, and we'd wake up on Christmas morning, and when my grandfather got back from the barn, he was a dairy farmer, we'd open our Christmas presents and then we'd have a big breakfast. We'd have biscuits, eggs, sausage, gravy, bacon, and then we'd have country ham and chocolate gravy, which chocolate gravy, if you've never heard of it, it might sound weird to you, but don't knock it till you try it. It is delicious. I highly recommend you give it a try. And our family does make it quite different than other recipes I've seen for it, so I'm excited to show you how we make that, as well as my granny's biscuits, and then I'll fry up some country ham. Now, I didn't make everything this particular day because it was just my husband and I for breakfast, but I've shared white gravy before on my channel. I'll have that linked down in the description box below, but let's get into this. I can't wait to share this with you. I'm going to start the biscuits first. Now, I have shared these before on my channel, but it was the first video I ever filmed, so it's pretty crappy. So to redeem myself, I wanted to show you how I make these. They're so easy. If you're intimidated by homemade biscuits or you've never made them before, don't be. They're so simple. It's 3 ingredients, and in less than the amount of time that it takes to preheat your oven, you can whip these together. So here are the ingredients that you'll need. Like I said, just 3. You'll need self-rising flour. Now, if you don't have a self-rising flour, don't stress about it. Use all-purpose if that's what you've got. Just go on Google and type in, how to make self-rising flour from all-purpose, and it'll tell you the measurements to add. You basically just add a little salt and some leavening. That's it. Now, we use buttermilk for our biscuits. If you don't have buttermilk, you can just use plain milk. You can also take plain milk and add a little bit of vinegar or lemon juice and let it sit for a couple minutes, or you can use cream. Now, with your flour and your milk, you will need some sort of fat. You can use chilled diced butter, you can use shortening, or you can use lard. We prefer shortening. We did a biscuit trial a couple years ago and used all 3, the butter, the shortening, and the lard, and we just preferred the shortening, but use what you've got on hand. All right, so once you've got your 3 ingredients, let me show you how to put these together. I've got my oven preheating to 425 degrees. Sometimes I cook them at 450. It just depends on my mood that day. Just if you cook it at 425, you might need to leave them in there a couple extra minutes. In my bowl, I'm going to add in my flour. Usually I sift this. I just forgot this morning for some reason, so I'm just taking my fork and whisking the flour. Now I'm going to add in the shortening, and you can use a pastry cutter if you have one. I don't, so I just like to use a fork to cut in my fat, and I take the fork and press the shortening against the side of the bowl, and you want to keep doing that until your fat, whether it's shortening, butter, or lard, looks like small crumbs like this. Next, I'm going to add in my buttermilk. Now, when you're adding your milk, how much you add will depend on lots of different factors. It'll depend on your flour, on the humidity that day. So go slowly. You don't want to add too much because then it kind of gets soupy and then you have to add more flour and it just kind of gets a mess. So just go slowly. And if you saw my vacuum over there in the corner, it's not possessed. It wasn't floating by itself. Gary was vacuuming while I was making breakfast. So just go slowly with the milk, and when it kind of forms a ball on itself and wraps around the fork and you don't see a lot of extra flour, you're all done. You don't want to overwork it. So I'm going to set that bowl to the side. I am going to grease my baking dish with some of the shortening. I'm using a cake pan today. You can do this in a cast iron skillet or whatever you prefer. So once I've greased that, I'm going to set it to the side. I'm going to sprinkle some flour onto my clean kitchen counter. And then you can roll out your biscuits with a rolling pin if you'd like. I just do it by hand. You don't want to overwork your biscuits. So I first fold the biscuit dough over on itself, maybe about 9 or 10 times. Again, you don't want to overwork it, but folding it on top of itself will kind of help you get more layers. Once I've folded it over on itself a few times, I'm going to pat it out with my hands. Again, you can use a rolling pin if you want. And then once I've patted it out, I like to go by about the thickness of my thumb. And then I take my biscuit cutter, and you just want to go straight up and down. Try not to twist it. And then that's it. Now look at all these layers in this biscuit. I'm going to place them into my baking dish, and I like to put them up against each other so the sides are touching. It helps them rise, but it also keeps the edges nice and soft. And then that's it. That is done. These are going to go into the preheated oven. I baked these for about 15 minutes. It really just depends on how thick or thin you cut your biscuits. Just check them after, about 10 minutes and then every couple minutes after that. Once they come out of the oven, I like to brush them with some butter on top, and that's it. Those are the biscuits. These are so delicious. Next up, I'm going to make the chocolate gravy. Now, like I said earlier, if you've never heard of chocolate gravy before, you might be like, what in the world? And I know we've had lots of family friends from all over the country. My husband is originally from upstate New York, and when he first heard us talking about chocolate gravy, he was like, ugh, I don't know about that. But everyone that has tried it has absolutely fallen in love with it. I don't even know how to describe it. You've just got to try it. It's super delicious and it's so easy. Now, like I said earlier, we make it a little bit differently than what I've seen for other recipes. So let me show you how I make it. You can customize it. You know, some people add in a little vanilla. Some people like to use milk. So you do you. This is just how we like it. Here are the ingredients that you'll need. Really simple. You'll need water, sugar, cocoa powder, all-purpose flour, and just a little pinch of salt. And I'll have the recipe typed out for this in the description box below, as well as for the biscuits. In this saucepan, I'm going to add in the water, 1 cup of the sugar. I'm going to give that a whisk, turn the heat up to about medium-high, and then bring this to a boil. We're going to mix up the rest of the ingredients in a separate container. You can use a bowl. I like to use a measuring cup. I'm going to add in the flour, then the remaining sugar, the cocoa powder, and the salt. And again, you just need a tiny little pinch of salt. And then I'm going to whisk that until it's combined really well. Now off camera, I added in just a couple tablespoons of warm water. You want to be careful. You don't want to add a lot of water. You're just wanting to add enough to make it a really thick paste. So once you have that, you are then going to whisk that mixture into your boiling water and sugar mixture. Now you want to do this with a whisk and whisk it pretty vigorously and keep whisking it to make sure there are no lumps. Now if you do get a few lumps, who cares? Lumpy gravy, it's still delicious. Don't worry about it. Now if it's a little thick for your liking, you can add in a little bit more water like I'm doing here. And do know that as it sits, it will continue to thicken up. You want to turn your heat down to about medium-low and cook this for about 3 to 5 minutes, and that's it. It's good to go. Now, like I said, if as it sits, it does thicken up a little bit more, just add in a little bit more water, no worries. So here's the finished chocolate gravy. Like I said, so simple. It may sound a little bit odd, but it is so incredibly delicious, especially poured over those delicious biscuits we made earlier. Next, I'm going to cook up some country ham. Now, there's not really a recipe for this. I wanted to just share how we like to cook this up. If you've ever made sausage or bacon, you can totally make country ham. If you're not familiar with it, it is pretty common here in the South. It's a cured pork product, but it is very, very salty. It is definitely not something you want to eat on a pretty frequent basis. It is an occasional treat. We really only have it for Christmas morning breakfast. So like I said, just be mindful of that. It is pretty salty. When I serve it up on my biscuit, I like to put a little honey over it, and that kind of cuts the saltiness just a little bit. But let me show you how I warm this up. Now, I've got this skillet over about medium-low heat. My mom prefers the center-cut country ham, so that's what I bought. I cut these into pieces like that would fit on a biscuit. Now, you can also get biscuit slices in the grocery stores too. That's a little bit cheaper than the center cut. Once I've added the ham to the skillet, I'm going to add in just a couple tablespoons of water, cover that with a lid, and I cooked it for about 5 minutes. Now, I just moved my skillet onto the back burner because I was making the chocolate gravy on the front burner. After about 5 to 7 minutes, I'm going to flip the country ham over and then turn the heat up to about medium-high, and I cooked it for just a minute or two on each side till it got just a little brown. Now that's it, it's done. Now my mom used to make my grandfather red-eye gravy from the drippings from the country ham in the skillet. She would add some coffee left over for breakfast and make that for him. Here's our little spread. Now like I said, for my granny and for us, usually we do a huge spread. Biscuits, we have the country ham, we have bacon, sausage, we make regular white gravy, the chocolate gravy, eggs, and then usually I make a hash brown casserole. But again, just for my husband and I today, we have the biscuits, the chocolate gravy, the country ham, and I did make up some quick scrambled eggs real quick, and then I set out the condiments that we like. We love ketchup with our scrambled eggs, so I set that out, some grape jelly and butter for the biscuits, and then like I said, I like to add a little honey to the country ham and biscuit. Here is my plate. This was delicious. I absolutely love having this on Christmas morning. Like I said, this is definitely a treat between the country ham and the chocolate gravy and the biscuits, but it is delicious. And like I said from the beginning, one of my favorite Christmas traditions and memories. I have wonderful memories of, waking up on Christmas morning, and at my grandparents' house, they had a wood stove. They lived in an old plantation house, and so it didn't have central heat and air. And I would just wake up that morning and, smell the wood burning, and then hear my grandmother in the kitchen cooking breakfast. And even though she's gone now, I love that we carry on those traditions that she established all those years ago. So I hope that you give these recipes a try, and if you celebrate Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate over the next upcoming weeks, I hope that you and your family enjoy them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.